Man, what a time, man. It's a reaction Monday after the Texans get a preseason finale victory.
Yes, sir.
As much as, do you care at all about the?
I don't even remember the score.
17-15, I believe.
17 to something.
17-15.
The real question is, did you stay awake trying to watch this game? Man?
Oh, my gosh. We will get to that. we will get to that.
I will plead the fifth.
For sure. Yes.
We'll get to that. We'll get to some winners and losers of the weekend. I believe we'll have an opportunity here from D'Amico Ryans. He speaks to media at 11 Central. So a lot of things because, look, the game itself, this isn't a typical game or like a victory Monday or what have you.
Yeah.
Because, look, the most important thing about this was not the game itself, but what the implications are on a particular thing that has to happen by tomorrow, which is cutting down your roster to 53 men.
Yeah, and we're gonna get some reports of that today. There are already some reports around the league. I can promise you, we're gonna hear some things on the Texans and some important things. Like in terms of the game itself, it was the most inconsequential, important game of the year.
Yeah,
if that makes any sense. It's I know it's victory, but it was an inconsequential game unless it was very important for you.
Right.
And like that's why, the big takeaways here, look, let's not bury the lead. I think, we've got a story brewing. I mean, we've got a story brewing that I think interests a lot of people based on who played.
Is it fair to say that that's been the story of the preseason for these Texans?
It became that, right? Like it started out with, offensive line and all that stuff. We've talked about it. But it became, is Dameon Pierce going to be the guy? Is Cam Akers going to have anything?
Who is RB2?
Yeah.
And we were talking about this Friday, the idea of, okay, what are the things that we could still learn? And, what are going to be the interpretations? And the Texans, I guess, either listening or they just decided to make it interesting for us because we learned on Saturday Dameon Pierce would not play.
Yeah.
And let's just go back to the OG. Let's do a little revisiting because we talked about this, and I asked you to do a little evaluation of what it would mean if Dameon Pierce did not play, and that is exactly what happened. Do you recall what you told me it would mean for this team if Dameon Pierce did not play?
If he didn't play, he was either on the team or maybe being shopped. Nothing has really changed.
Sure.
I mean, Cam Akers played in the game, but he played like a backup running that had to, because obviously Joe Mixon wasn't in there, so you had to have somebody running the ball.
Absolutely.
It wasn't going to be British Brooks and Jawar Jordan the whole time. And
J.J. Taylor as well.
All that stuff. So somebody had to run the ball. I've got some really important news for you. The same thing is true now as it was going into the game because Dameon Pierce did not play, and I still am not quite sure if that means he's they're thinking about moving him or the decision's already been made. Now, D'Amico Ryans did say after the game,
and I think we got the audio here of like D'Amico Ryans because look, we can speculate on what we think it means, but why not go and get it from the horse's mouth? D'Amico Ryans, head coach of this Texans team. Why didn't you play Dameon Pierce?
I thought the linebacker. I didn't play Dameon because I've seen enough from Dameon in practice and everything, so I've had a good look at Dameon.
What does that mean?
I think.
What does that mean?
That's a great question. Because
I've seen enough of Dameon. Like it all depends on how you say it. Like let's say you're with a girl, and she says, "I've seen enough of you."
Yeah, that context is not a good one. That context is not a good one. But I mean, I'm not sure if that's the context here, right? It's. I think my initial reaction was that he's seen enough in the affirmative and the positive.
Yeah.
But hey, you're right. It could be in that negative perspective, but that wouldn't necessarily jive with what we've heard from him in regards to Dameon Pierce's reps in these preseason games because it's been the direct opposite when he's talked about Dameon Pierce.
Been bad.
Not just has it bad. Like when D'Amico has talked about Dameon Pierce, he's like, well, he just hasn't gotten enough opportunities, and the opportunities haven't been clean enough, right? We've had, defenders in the run gaps. So you can't really evaluate off of those, seeming to tell us that I haven't seen enough in that regard, but I've seen enough in the practices to know what it looks like. And so this was kind of an interesting, and I don't know if it's definitively or definitely the idea of talking out of both sides of your mouth, but that's how it felt to me when I heard it.
No, I think he wanted it to sound positive. I think you can lean toward it sounds positive, but that's not an answer in terms of he's on our squad. I've seen enough of him. Okay, well, clearly you needed to see some more of Cam Akers, and then you can add this to the to as a level. Did Cam Akers sort of tip the scales in his favor? I know it was the last preseason of the game of the year, but Cam Akers looks the part, man. And I don't mean just aesthetically, like he looks like a running back. No, I mean he looks the part in this offense.
Yeah.
Like he looks like a guy that is comfortable running behind this line, running in this type of offensive scheme, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that's the story of the day. I think that's the story of the day until we get a resolution on it.
I think it might have been Kevin Kugler on the broadcast on Saturday. If you catch me saying yesterday, it's because I watched it yesterday, so my apologies if that slips out. But I think it was Kevin Kugler on the broadcast who said that, like, and it might have been Harris, that Cam Akers has answered every question.
Yeah.
When it comes to, can he do this? The cuts, he's been able to make the cuts. I think I really should have started with the patience, right? The veteran wherewithal to have patience behind, zone blocking scheme and wait for those holes to open up and then attack them, right?
Right.
The thing that I had questions about when you have an Achilles and then he has 2 Achilles injuries in his history is the explosion there. It seems like for the most part, at least, when it comes down to being sufficient, being capable of getting up to speed when you need to, he's been able to do that. He's put his foot in the ground. He's cut. The awareness, all these things.
But they know more, and they have more confidence.
See, the part that get me is I felt like Pierce should be in a competition for that number 2 running back position, but they're not really treating him like that, man. They only gave him, 4 carries? 8
carries, 9 yards.
Yeah, man. To me, that seemed like they already know. They're not really giving them a chance to get grooving a little bit, man. And you kind of see it. They kind of doing that with Mechie. Mechie played every game.
Yeah.
And Pierce only played, 2 games?
Yeah.
It seemed like they just know what he got, and he's making his team, and he's RB2.
Does this – because, look, I mean, this decision-making brain trust with the Texans has, and rightfully so, gotten a lot of trust and respect from the media, from fans, all these things. Are you feeling some type of way in any way about the handling of this? Because you're right, Fig. Like they've gotten to a place where it felt like the answer was already in pen before we got, the test, so to say.
Right. I think we've stumbled upon like a story that's going to be there at least through the middle of the season. Because like no matter which decision they make, there's going to be an assortment of us. I'll put myself in there because I know I'm going to be scrutinizing this move. This decision is going to be scrutinized at least until midseason, and one of these running backs really has established themselves one way or the other. Like if they pick Cam Akers, all right, and he's a stud, well, all good, right? But if they pick Cam Akers and he gets injured or is less than productive or there's wear and tear, then we're all going to be like, well, see there, That's the aspect of this that I think is really important. Dameon Pierce is younger. Dameon Pierce is a guy that has not had 2 Achilles, but he's had some injuries here and there, but nothing like that. So you can easily argue if they pick Cam Akers and it doesn't work out, it's like see what happened? They should have gone with the younger guy. If they pick Dameon Pierce and he's averaging 1.8 yards a carry or 2.2 yards a carry or something, we're going to be like, dude, it was obvious in the preseason that Cam Akers was better. So, like, the Texans, like all great teams, and we think they're going to be pretty dang good, are in the midst of one of those good problems, but it is a problem if it doesn't work out.
And, I mean, there's a few things. Like, one of those is, you're right, Dameon Pierce is younger, but I don't know that we're talking about Dameon Pierce where it's like, oh, there's a little bit of he's having a down stretch, right, or like a tough time in the midst of his career. Like, we're seeing him not being able to, like, this feels like a weakness in his capability of matching a system. Like, this feels like a fit issue that we're talking about. And so I don't know how much continuing to do that ends up being an issue. But we were also talking about this, I think, in a break last week where, we talked about the idea that Joe Mixon is probably, if healthy, going to take a lion's share of these runs. And so you're not talking about a ton of runs, and maybe we are making the running back RB2 situation bigger, but it's still something, right? For a team that wants to contend, the margins become thinner, and that becomes where you win games and where you win, accolades and things of that nature. does it feel like you're lighting on fire with Dameon Pierce if he's still having 1 yard per per carry, as opposed to the possibilities that Cam Akers clearly demonstrates to make something bigger out of what is blocked up for him? Like, that ends up being how much of a factor will that be if you are getting the iterations of Cam Akers and Dameon Pierce that it feels like we've seen?
Absolutely,
in the preseason?
absolutely does. Presuming if it does go that way, you say lighting plays on fire. I've always said you can't have any giveaways.
Yeah, you
can't give away if you're a contender. You can't give away plays because that could kill one drive, and one drive dead means maybe you lose the game. So you can't have giveaways. So. Like, look, man. I mean, this is a big boy problem. The D'Amico Ryans and Nick Caserio have their first big boy problem. No matter which way they go, there's going to be fair scrutiny the other way.
And to be fair, one thing that we can also circle back to is I don't know if this will necessarily be a binary selection of either keep Dameon Pierce or Cam Akers. I think there is the possibility that you keep both of them. The problem is when we talk about a 53-man roster, it is just that, 53 men. So like when you keep both of those guys to kind of simultaneously be in that running back 2 kind of situation, are they playing special teams? Who does that then move out? Because you still have the likes of Dare, you still have the likes of British Brooks or whatever you're going to do at fullback, those types of things on the back end that you're considering. And then I'll be damned if that then factors into some of the other places where you have strengths. So, I think
the thing is, there is going to be a number 2 back.
Sure.
Now there might be both on the roster, but all good teams, all great teams have 2 running backs that are effective. Now I think you're right. I agree with you. Joe Mixon is probably going to be a bigger workhorse than your average number 1 back. But every contending team has a number 2 running back. Now who's going to be jogging out there? Is it going to be Cam Akers or is it going to be Dameon Pierce? Even if they're both on the roster, one of them is going to be jogging out there as a number 2 guy.
It'll be super interesting to see. Today will go a long way in giving us some insight, and then tomorrow, obviously, roster cut down day.
Yeah.
When we get like a full insight into what Caserio, Ryans, and the rest of the Brain Trust are thinking. It's been really interesting to be in this place where it feels like something is so obvious, and the powers that be that often we will treat as being more football smart than the rest of us, seemingly are going in the opposite direction on the way that they handle this.